Evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 19th Parents Advisory Council meeting. Just a word here about the PAC. The Parents Advisory Council represents your neighbors. It actually, and I just made a Mr. Core joke prior to the meeting. We do have students on here right now, so perhaps our group should be called SPAC. But in any case, I know that title has already been copyrighted, so I need to be careful here, but we do have students. Our Parents Advisory Council represents a group of parents and students from the schools throughout the district. They are here to help and provide input. This is a group that prior to COVID, we met in different schools. It was a single group of the Parents Advisory Council. Last year, when we were working on the reopening, we opened up the PAC meetings virtually and they were well attended. They also became the vehicle for us to get out information about the reopening plans at that time, and this summer is similar to that. So I think it is a great vehicle for us to receive input. If you have questions, certainly you can submit them to our communications email and we will get back to you. So the PAC, I'm very grateful for our membership and for their willingness to serve and volunteer on behalf of their school community. So let's go to the presentation. And let's go to the first slide. So what I want to do is I want to start off with the good news. And the good news is this: North Colonie is committed to a full return of in-person instruction for all grades 5 days a week. Let's talk about why we should celebrate that. So this year, all students, K-12, will be back for a full day of school. That's not the abbreviated 5-hour version. We were very proud of the work that our teachers and our staff did at the elementary level to come in every day and serve our students. But given our transportation schedule, we had to go with that abbreviated program. We were maybe the only or one of the extreme few, less than a handful of schools who had 7th and 8th graders in school. Granted, it was for part of a day, each and every day. And again, we're proud of that work as well. And our high schoolers were in for half a day, every other day. This year, again, the celebration is due to the fact that we are returning to full in-person instruction for all grades 5 days a week. And that is a fact to celebrate. And we are very happy to have all our students back at the elementary level, at the middle level, and at the secondary level as well. So that is the good news. Second bit of good news is earlier in August, we held a vaccination clinic and we had 60+ people get their first shot of the Pfizer vaccine. Many of those were individuals in the 12 to 18 years of age category. The return for the second shot, this is a clinic that is being sponsored by our community partners in the Albany County Department of Health. The second shot will be available on August 26th, and first shot walk-ins are welcome. So the availability of that is from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock on August 26th. And if you are a walk-in looking for your first shot, that you are welcome to do that. Your second shot most likely will be at the Albany County Department of Health or at a facility determined by them, but they will provide you with that information at that particular clinic. So let's go to the next slide here. And where do we get our guidance from? So we go to the Center for Disease Control, the Albany County Department of Health, and the New York State Education Department to receive our guidance on reopening. And we look to the experts there, the scientific experts, doctors, physicians, and public health experts, epidemiologists, to provide us our guidance. So let's go to the next slide. Now, we aim to share our guidance now, and it's based on what we know now, and we want to break that down to what it means specifically for North Colonie. And our goal, and I believe the goal of everyone, is that first and foremost, we want to provide the opportunity for in-person schooling for our students. We want them to return to school. We want to give them the best experience possible. I think I can't stress the next part enough. Please keep in mind, we will share what we know. We will share what we know at this juncture, but this is a situation that is constantly changing and plans will change. So we know for a fact too that it's caused unease and concern, and that's very understandable. People felt that in June, at the end of June and in the early part of the summer, that we were returning to what was the normal prior to March of 2020. And, we're very proud of the fact that we held a graduation at the Times Union Center. And we were able to have our students walk across the stage and experience the speeches from their fellow classmates who were class officers, to hear the band play, to hear select chorus sing. It was a great graduation, and that seemed very normal. But then there was the influx and the growth of the Delta variant, and that changed the circumstances. And so that is what we're dealing with now. But it is our constant hope, okay, that the situation is changing, and we hope that it will change for the better. And there is evidence, given the course of the Delta variant in other countries, that it does tend to come to an end rather quickly than other variants. But we need to be vigilant, and we need to be safe and mindful in how we plan our return to school. So let's go to the next slide right now, please. And so I think this is important to note. We are sharing what we know today based at this juncture, the 19th of August, after 7 o'clock at night. We're sharing what we know at this time. Some aspects could change. They will change most likely. That's one thing we've known throughout the pandemic, is that we need to be flexible. We're also awaiting word from the new governor. There's potential for change there. We've been hearing that there may be more direction and there may be more guidance, either from the governor's office or as that guidance comes through the New York State Department of Health. So keeping that in mind, we also realize that we are in a variable state, and that state is changing. And in terms of that matter, we are tentatively scheduling another PAC meeting for next Thursday at 7 o'clock to continue to address some of the questions that arise, and also to update you on some information. So we are going to talk about a tiered mitigation strategy. And so if we could go to the next slide, that would be great. So the tiered approach, essentially, this is our focus here. We have to prioritize the health and safety of our students and staff. That is job number one on the return. And there are some components of what schools have to implement or are implementing that cause concern in the community. And we understand that they cause concern. But again, I would like us to think about what is the good news. And the good news is we're back together. Students have the opportunity to come back together and attend school. and to be with their friends. And though it may not look like 2019-20 school year at the beginning of the school year in September of that year, it's really getting rather close. And it certainly is better than it was at this time last year. So I think, that's the focal point where we can come together. We also want to, again, get our students back in school and provide them with full opportunities so that we can support their social, emotional, and mental health. And that not just of our students, but of our staff as well. And aligned to that, we want to commit to providing as many opportunities for our students as possible. So when we want to support their social, emotional, and mental health, that means that we also want to look at how do we provide for educational and extracurricular activities to the fullest extent possible. So we look at multiple measures of mitigations, and we'll talk about those in a minute. And those multiple measures of mitigations will vary based upon community transmission rates. Let's go to the next slide, please. So to identify these various CDC levels of community transmission, we are using the CDC indicators for low, moderate, substantial, and high transmission. And they are signified by the colors blue for low, moderate for yellow, orange for substantial, and the high transmission rate is in red. The CDC uses two measures to determine the transmission rate. And the measure, when they differ, the higher level is the one they use to assign the level of community transmission. So when we look at low transmission, that is signified by 0 to less than 10 total cases per 100,000 persons in the last 7 days. So the way the CDC chooses that or represents that is a rolling 7-day average. So that what happens is it's a 7-day average. As we go to the next day, the last day falls off, and so on and so on and so on. The second factor to determine levels of community transmission is the percentage of NAATs, or nucleic acid amplification tests, that are positive during the past 7 days. So that if it is less than 5%, you are in blue. If it's 5 to 8%, you're in moderate or yellow. If it is 8 to 10%, you're in substantial or orange. And if you're in high transmission, you're greater than 10. Currently, the Albany County is in the high transmission rate, and that is because on the basis of the top indicator there, the total cases per 100,000 persons in the last 7 days, it's greater than 100. So Jane, if you could click on the chart for tiered mitigation protocols. And perhaps if we could go there up to the percentage, maybe bump that up to 125, that might make it an easier view for our audience. Okay.
I think if we could put it on full screen, I think that would be helpful too.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's look at this, and I'm going to go down through the chart, and I'm going to speak to the levels of community transmission and talk about where we are at this point in the opening of school. So the first mitigation protocol is vaccination. And right across the board, vaccination is encouraged for all who are eligible. It is the single biggest factor here to reduce the severity of disease, reduce hospitalization, improve the general spread of the disease, even though we know that there have been breakthrough cases. There are fewer breakthrough cases with those who are vaccinated. So I cannot encourage you anymore to, when you have the opportunity, to get vaccinated. And by the way, on the 26th of August, again, in conjunction with our Albany County Department of Health partners, we will be sponsoring a vaccination clinic. A second component would be testing. And so the component testing would be in low transmission, we would not do surveillance testing. Surveillance testing is where we take a percentage of students, and in this case, the parents would consent to that. You may remember that we did this last year in all our schools with 10% of our students, and we would test them to get a surveillance or survey a sample of our population to see if there's any evidence of the spread of COVID-19 in that population. I'd like to also note too, that the counties throughout New York State have received significant dollars in grants to do surveillance testing in school. Now, that process has not yet been fully established, and we will work with our partners in the Albany County Department of Health. Once that gets established, again, consent will be a feature of that surveillance testing. But once that program gets up and running, it does represent a mitigation effort. And so we would plan to do surveillance testing at moderate and at substantial and at high community transmission. And by the way, when we did our surveillance testing last year, we had 0 positives. Face masking. So we are requiring universal face masking for all indoors at all times. That's regardless of vaccination status, and that's when we're in moderate, substantial, or high transmission. And for all unvaccinated students, staff, and visitors, even in low transmission, masking will be required. We know that this causes concerns on the part of some, but we feel the measure is really a good measure to have in place as a layer of prevention for the spread of COVID-19, and also is just another factor to ensure that we stay in school. So I mentioned this, our protocols may change, and of course they may change based upon levels of transmission, and they may change per direction of CDC, of the state, or of the county. So we are also going to be monitoring community and school-based transmission. So we will be looking at the CDC. There is a CDC site. You can go on that site. You can also identify the rate of transmission, both in terms of the positive COVID tests and in the number of cases per 100,000. You can do that daily. You can go back. You can look at what it is historically. You can identify trends. So that will be a factor that will be used. We will monitor that on a regular basis. And we will also look at other factors that exist out there as well, such as what is the rate of infection. There is a site that the Harvard, Yale, and Stanford medical schools have where they look at how rapidly is the disease spreading. And what they use is a factor of 1. So if you have a 1.0 rating, that means one person affects one other person. If it goes to 2.0, that means one person affects two people. But if the disease is starting to become less potent, that number will drop below 1. So we'll take a look at the variety of these factors here, but the primary factor that will drive it will be the community transmission rate as determined by the CDC. And that will be ongoing benchmarking of that. Indoors, the reason why we are able to come back at full capacity is that physical distancing has been at 3 feet. So only in low transmission would we even consider unmasking, but we are looking at the 3 feet of social distancing and masking as the primary mitigation strategy. Can we move down on the slide here? School visitors. So when we take a look at that, there would be no to minimal restrictions and low to moderate. Moderate restrictions when we bump into surveillance, there would be limited use of outside groups of school facilities. When facilities and when visitors entered, always they would be coming into school and obeying or following our school protocols. When we're in a high transmission state, we would look at no unnecessary visitors, no outside group use of the school facilities. And again, we would always be maintaining our protocols there. Hand washing, hand sanitizer, respiratory etiquette, that is going to be standard. That was emphasized last year during COVID, and quite honestly is a feature that should be emphasized at all times as well. Okay, so let's move on here, Jane. So quarantine. So initially I had a rather detailed description of quarantine, and then I backed off. And the reason is this: the counties are coming together. They are the agencies who determine the quarantine rules, procedures, and protocols. So they are in the process of working on them. And so therefore, I did not want to put out misinformation tonight that may actually change. So quarantining will be something that we will cover at a later date. And I would hope that later date would be next week, but that is to be determined. In terms of monitoring our students for symptoms, last year you had to fill out an attestation every morning. At this juncture, we are not going to require that, but all students should be monitored daily for symptoms, temperature taken, and when staff and students are sick, they should stay home. And some of us might have been raised on the notion here that you go to school no matter what. That is not a good idea at all. You should be staying home when you are symptomatic. That's the bottom line. Stay home when you're symptomatic. And that means when you exhibit a fever, when you have any stomach illnesses, when you evidence any respiratory illness, please stay home. In the return to school following illness, again, we are obligated to follow the Albany County Department of Health protocols in this. So when these become more firmly established, we will certainly put those out there. But the return to school, again, is determined by the local county health department. So cleaning and disinfection. So we put a lot of work into this, and we're going to continue that same work again. So we're going to have routine cleaning, daily disinfection of high-touch surfaces, in moderate transmission, and in substantial, it's going to be moderate and high-touch surfaces. So we are starting the school year in the same position that we ended it with our cleaning protocols. And so that means that there's a sign off by our custodians when they've gone in the rooms, when they have done the cleaning and disinfection of those areas. And they did a great job of that work last year. And so we are continuing that throughout the school year as part of our mitigation protocols. Also, I'm sure there's a lot of questions with regard to the cafeterias. So the way we are working our cafeterias, we, again, CDC states that cafeteria capacity and serving meals and the ability to physical distance should not be an obstacle to the return to school. So in each building, it may be different due to the physical structure that exists in those buildings. So essentially, we are looking at ways to, in each of the buildings, to reduce cafeteria capacity, and that will be building specific. So in some elementary buildings, it might mean that some days or for a week, a class eats in their room, and another class or another two classes, depending upon the physical configuration and size of the elementary school, eats in the cafeteria. So it may be rotated out. We may use additional spaces where possible in the good weather. You know, we're going to try to take advantage of outside, but this is all building specific. In addition to that, we will be serving lunches in bagged lunches, at least to start the year. That allows us for grab and go and doesn't allow for, mitigates congregating really at the lunch line. But this is our plan for the cafeteria. Students will remove their masks and eat. They will be able to have normal conversations at lunch. When they get up, they will put that mask on, and if they have to throw away, put their tray away or do any of that, that will be done with a mask on. Let's go to the next. So physical education, recess, outdoors. So we know that the conditions that exist outdoors are better. So there will be no restrictions on activities when students, there will be no restrictions on activities when students are in moderate or in low transmission. Where possible, we would encourage physical distancing. Masking would not be required in a substantial or a moderate or a low zone. When we're in high risk, we would look at physical distancing and mask during activities where physical distancing is not possible when we are outdoors. So let's go to the next slide here. And so ventilation and air quality. So this is true throughout our buildings. So the requirement for fresh air circulation is 10% fresh air circulation. We have increased that to 20%, so we have doubled it. And this has been through a combination of mechanical upgrades, open windows, open doors, and we've installed the MERV 13 filters on all our buildings. Those filters are filter out more pathogens, and they are the recommended filters by the CDC and other agencies to do such. They have been installed. We also have extras for our regular replacement schedule. For transportation, no matter what zone students are in, there will be assigned seating and the mask will be required at all times. That is federal regulation. For athletics, when we are in low transmission, there will be no restrictions. When we look at higher risk sports, and so for the fall season, that would be football and volleyball. Competitive cheer is a high risk sport. So in areas of moderate transmission, we would look at surveillance rapid testing for unvaccinated students in the higher risk sports, and the rate would be determined. That's to be determined. There would be surveillance testing for unvaccinated students at the substantial level as well. It may have a higher rate. There may be some limiting of the number of spectators that could attend an event. And we're in a high transmission zone. We would look at required rapid testing. So that we would have to have parental consent for testing for unvaccinated students to participate in the higher risk sports. When we are in this zone, right now we are planning to limit spectators to 2 per athlete. Again, we hope we drop off into lower transmission zones so that we could immediately increase the number of spectators, because we realize that's important for family and friends and for our student body to attend these events as well. Another area here is music, chorus, and band. We realize that this is important. So when students are outdoors, there are no restrictions. However, indoors, they will always wear masks to sing. There will be bell covers on the wind instruments, and that's universally across the board in moderate, substantial, and high risk areas as well. So let's go to the next slide, please. And again, this indicates what the levels of community of transmission would be. So for low transmission, less than 10 on the cases per 100,000 in the past 7 days. For the percentage of positive tests, it's less than 5. For moderate transmission, it's 10 to 50 in the cases per 100,000 area, and 5 to 8 in moderate. And in the, that's a mistake, it should be substantial, is 5 to 99. And the rate is 8 to 10. And in high transmission, it is greater than 100 per 100,000 and greater than 10% on the return on the positive tests. So let's come out of the chart. Back to the presentation. Okay, so with virtual learning, just the update. And we have closed out our survey on Friday. We have shared the information from that survey with Capital Region BOCES. They are coordinating the effort. We'll have more updates and details to share next week. I think we have really nothing to add at this point in time, but we hopefully will have more details on what it might look like, what the registration process would be, and the like. And let's go to the next slide, please. And so please, again, if you have questions, send them to communications@ncolonie.org. And just before this meeting, I was asked by the Southgate PTA to mention that they are having a fundraiser. And that fundraiser at Southgate Elementary is Tuesday, August 24, from 5 to 7. It is a drive-through barbecue meal from Giffey's. The cost is $15 per meal. Each meal includes a half barbecue chicken, a baked potato, coleslaw, roll, butter, cookie, and paper package with utensils, napkin, pepper, and salt included. And the important point to note is all proceeds from this event will go toward the building of an inclusive playground in honor of beloved coach, teacher, Peter Moralja, who suddenly passed away this year. So again, this is a wonderful cause. People should you need to register in advance. And so one way to register is to go to Southgate PTA, that is one address, .ny@gmail.com. Perhaps we could put that in the chat. And then, also you could make that check payable to the Southgate PTA. Please consider supporting that. We have communications out on that as well. So without further ado here, I will come out of the presentation and let's go to some of the questions that are here. And I do have my staff here as well. So one question, if my child is remote, do I need to do anything to get them in class on the bus? So the answer to that question is no, but just want to reaffirm that as well. But buses are so with buses, we are encouraging individuals to drive to school when possible. But we will have assigned seats on buses and we will have no limits other than the stated capacity of the bus. When students are working at a desk, we're going to ask them to keep their masks on. I think especially though teachers were good last year at providing students with mask breaks, and that will continue this year. And thank you again, Stephanie. That is a wonderful fundraiser, and we will have more district communication on that. So Lisa, if an entire class is quarantined, will the class be taught remotely by their elementary teacher? The case would be if the entire class is quarantined, that is a different circumstance than if a single individual is quarantined. So we would make arrangements for that entire class to be taught remotely. So the 3 feet of social distancing will be in the classroom. And that will be basically the distance that is suggested by the Academy of Pediatric Physicians and with the CDC as well. How quickly will mitigation protocols change once the community moves to a lower zone? Will it be instant? I think it is a 7-day average. I think that's a great question, Jennifer, and I think that's a question that we still would have to work out as an area. So I certainly think that we would want to make that accommodation as quickly and as safely as possible, and make sure it's not just a one-off; it is an actual trend. So Jen, I'm assuming band orchestra will be spaced 3 feet apart, same for singing. If that is the case, how will they fit in spaces? Are alternative spaces going to be used, or smaller groups broken into smaller groups? I know Mrs. Keogh, our music supervisor, knows this, and I think she feels that we can accommodate this. The important thing to remember in all of this is the CDC guidance has been clear. And that is that the CDC is recommending universal masking by all students, staff, personnel, regardless of vaccination status. So that is the position that North Colonie is taking. And it really is, especially during these times of high, substantial, or moderate transmission, it is what we are adopting at this point in time. Okay, tiered mitigation, that is a strategy that actually is a regional strategy that has been created and used by the 24 schools within the capital region. Do we need to notify transportation if we do not need bus transportation? That is not necessary. New information regarding clubs. Troy, could you elaborate on that for me?
Last meeting, you kind of went into slight detail with the middle school specifically about how they were working through it, but you didn't really address the rest of the school district, because I know a lot of elementary schools and especially the high schools have a lot of after school clubs. So is there any new information on what times they'll be meeting or if they'll be allowed to go on at all?
Clubs and extracurricular activities will allow to be go on within the protocols that we have established. For the high school schedule, that's the same schedule as it always was. So they will begin at 2:17. Mr. Chamberlain, do you have anything to add for middle school yet?
We're going to have more details. We're going to have a parent forum on the 30th that will give out some more details on clubs, but we will continue. We're working on having clubs as part of the school day as well for many clubs on a period rotational basis throughout the year. So it'll knock off different periods every couple of weeks, but we'll be giving more specifics for middle school students and parents on the 30th.
So Jenna Myers, thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. Jenna Myers has a question. Snow days, thing of the past. Snow days are not a thing of the past. Okay, so we've put snow days into our school schedule this year. We are mandated by the state of New York to have 180 school days. So we have 3 snow days built into the schedule. If we hit 180, we do have the option also of going to a virtual or remote day, and that would meet a requirement there. Great question, Jennifer. So if one student is quarantined, is the entire class quarantined too? Right now, if students are vaccinated, then quarantining does not need to take place. But I think what I need to do before I give you specific information on that, I need to get direct information from the Albany County Department of Health. So I don't want to give you misinformation on that, because health departments determine who quarantines. Will school supplies be kept for each student, or will they be shared among classmates? I think the best policy is for students, is for supplies to be kept individually. Okay, Mr. Chamberlain, email about the 8th grade school building tour.
Mr. Carr, are you asking me, do you want me to explain that? Okay, yeah. So we sent out an email just probably an hour and a half ago because of parents requesting, for reasons, we're just gonna have 8th grade tours, but we're opening that. We added a bunch more days so that anyone can come in based on whatever your child's comfort is, to, if that is a helpful piece to get them in the building and give them familiarity with the building. We want that to be an option for them. So 6 through 8 folks, check your emails, and there's a sign up genius out, and it's going to be just to limit numbers. We're not going to have all the parents come in as well. And we're also, students are older than our 4th or 6th graders. So we want them to have the opportunity to come in independently in a smaller group with a tour guide, a staff member. So just check your email and sign up, and we're looking forward to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. Jennifer, if a student does not sign up for a bus but needs to take one to from school, will they be able to take the bus? I think the best thing is sign up for a bus, and if you need to use it, you're covered. Lisa, I'm glad to hear kids will be able to speak freely at lunch. This did not happen. Yes, students will be able to speak at lunch in a reasonable tone, which should be the case always. We will have locker use at the middle school and at the high school. I'm not following the differences in the upper three tiers. They seem to be very similar. Well, they are similar, but I think in certain instances, there are differences. So I could probably have that conversation probably more offline. Are printed school calendars being mailed out? Yes. And they will reflect the current school year. Okay, so the requirements for high-risk sports in a high transmission zone. If you are unvaccinated in a high-risk zone, you must agree to weekly testing. The rate of that testing has yet to be determined. That's for unvaccinated only. Vaccinated students do not have to test. Will middle and high school gym classes take place, and will students be able to change and have a locker? On the same note, will sports players be issued lockers? I'm going to come back with more specific sports information and athletics next week, and I'd be glad to answer that question at that time. Michelle, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, I think the good news is we are trying to keep everybody back in school. Will students be able to meet in small groups if 3 feet rules are observed? Jen, can you help me with that a little bit? What do you mean?
So when students get together, especially like in the elementary level, are they allowed to, the teacher's allowed to put kids in small groups as long as the 3-foot rule is together instead of sitting at their desks?
Yes, they
and
are.
bringing it more back to the normal classroom style.
Yes, appreciate that. Yes. Thank you. Jenna, last year library had different protocols. No book exchange for older kids. The library be open for book exchange? Will be books be put aside before being put back into the curriculum? I think, you know, book exchange and those activities, I don't sense the spread on surfaces is much likely. I would say that that will be back as a practice. When should we anticipate seeing the school calendars reaching our homes? I would say within a week to 10 days. Will school traditions be brought back, for example, for the high school students like homecoming dance and snowball, etc.? So the thing that I would say for that would be we try to provide as rich and as normal an experience for students as possible. So I think if you remember last year with prom and the like, it was looking like there was not going to be a prom. It was looking like there was not going to be a senior picnic. And yet when circumstances began to improve, we had a function organized by student government over in the parking lot of Our Lady of Angels. We put on an activity at the Apex facility in the Cross Gates Mall. And we did have a prom. So the best answer that I can give to you on that, Jen, is that it will depend. It will depend upon circumstances. It will also depend upon what the kids want. And but the bottom line is always safety and being able to do activities such as this, fully realizing their value and their importance and what they mean for kids, and do them in the safest way possible. That's we're looking, you know, we're looking to provide opportunities and to not deny opportunities, but we're looking to do that always in the safest way possible. I know there was the thought to do something at elementary levels for kids and families to get them back together safely. Still a chance. And Lisa, I apologize to you on that. I'm having a bit of brain freeze on that right now. Can you help me?
I thought we had talked about it, maybe it was the last meeting, that we were going to try to have, because there wasn't a lot of the end of year spirit days. You have a lot of students that might have been remote students at the elementary level. I think there was, up to 700 children that were remote elementary students. So the idea was we were going to try to do something at the elementary level at the different elementary schools so that the kids would have that opportunity to socialize and transition back into the school environment, whether they were in person or remote.
So that's a great
Or
question.
I made this all up and you all are believing me, one or the other.
I don't think so. No. So here's the one issue though. So individual building activities will happen upon return. Quite honestly, 4 out of 6 elementary buildings have been under construction this year. And that has made that not possible at this juncture. So it's impacted us right up until the start of school. And I can tell you, it's always, it gets done. And I know Mr. Kraft is on this call, and Mr. Kraft has done a remarkable job of monitoring the construction process throughout the building here. But construction will occur right up to the start of school. But your point is well taken. And once we get back in school, perhaps we could do that. The other thing, Lisa, that's been very helpful too, to the students in the secondary level has been the engagement camps. They have been helpful in getting kids back to school. Many of them were remote students who came back in, and that's been very good. So the offices at the high school have been moved. We certainly can give a brief recap of this. So again, there still is construction going here. So no longer do you go in the main entrance of the high school. You go in the entrance just to the side where you would go into what is now the fitness center. And then the main office is located there. We can review that. The old main entrance is under construction right now. You could not enter that area there. But once the construction is completed, the guidance facility and nurse's office will be located there. I just want to mention this. Elementary teacher placements will go out the week of August 20th in the portal. And transportation schedules will go out August 30th in the portal. So that's August 20th in the portal for transportation schedules and August 30. Okay, I messed that up. Stop, repeat. On August 20th, teacher placements will be in the portal. On August 30th, transportation schedules will go into the portal. And when will high school schedules go out? Mr. Wager, you may not have the information on this, but do you have an estimate?
I don't, excuse me, I don't have the exact date, but we're shooting towards the September 1st, somewhere in that neighborhood, end of August, beginning of September. As soon as we've got everything buttoned up and have lunches situated so that they're safe and productive, the finishing touches will go on the schedule and those will get out.
Thank you. Appreciate for the comment about the engagement camps. That was a great experience for almost 1,200 students this year. So thank you.
Mr. Core, if I could, just from a student government perspective on homecoming, We are still planning on having homecoming if it is plausible and if you approve of it and it's safe. So I just wanted to add that in.
I appreciate that, Troy, and I don't deny here that student government is right on top of things and, and working forward. So I know Mr. Wager looks forward to working with you, and we always do. So thank you. Appreciate it. Sujatha, thank you. I appreciate it. We will be starting with masking. Thank you, Lisa. Greatly appreciate that as well. Well, as always, thank you to our Student Parent Advisory Council. And thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that comment. And we'll be back next week. Thank you, Kelly. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, we'll have some more information. If we really don't have anything new, and I doubt that, but if we don't have anything new, then we will probably move to the next week. But please stay tuned. We'll let you know. Again, just want to note here at our peak, we were at 362 viewers. So that's a terrific turnout. That's really great. And so thank you all to our members of our Student and Parent Advisory Council. And I'm very grateful to our community. I'm very grateful to the group for their time and input. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.